right, my friends, it's time to break open God's Word in the Psalms in this Soulful Psalms segment of Beacon of Truth. This is where we take the Psalms from the wisdom literature of the Old Testament and we walk through the Psalms and we talk about connecting the Psalms to your everyday life. And I am using the Revised Grail Psalms. This is a translation of the Psalms which has been approved by the U.S. bishops to use at Mass and prepared by the Benedictine monks of Conception Abbey. So, whatever version of the Psalms you have your Bible there. It really doesn't matter what version you use. I'm using this one because it's a little more faithful to the Hebrew. But whatever version you have there is fine. Today, we're going to walk through Psalm 38. And remember that this Soulful Psalm segment is its own podcast. So you can go to Podcast Central at EWTN.com or use the EWTN app, as I do. Or you can go to, to Spotify or iTunes or any one of those to listen to these Soulful Psalms at your leisure because it's its own podcast. All right, so today we're going to start looking at Psalms 38. There's no way we're going to get through this whole psalm, so we're going to break it up a little bit. So Psalm 38. So Psalm 38 is in book 1 of the Psalms, Psalms 1 to 41, all attributed to David. And the prescript is the entire first verse. It simply says, a psalm of David for a memorial, right? For a memorial. And so we don't know well, I'm not sure exactly what kind of memorial this could be, but I'm sure this was something. Now I got to look at the word there. Obviously, if it's a zacher, that means it's definitely liturgical in nature, which is probably what this is. So, zacher in Hebrew is a living memory, right? So for our Hebrew brothers and sisters, memory is something that's alive. Memory is a living thing. It means the graces and blessings of a past event are made real and present right now. So that's the language they use, for example, in the Passover. I'm just curious to see what word is used there. But in any case, let's dive in and see what David has to share with us today. So he starts at verse 2. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger. Reprove me not in your rage. For your arrows have sunk deep in me. Your hand has come down upon me. All right. So David, obviously David is going through something. This is almost sounds like a shigayon type of psalm, or a lament type of psalm, like Psalm number 7. But David is again laying out the as he typically does at the beginning of Psalms. Either he comes out honoring and praising and glorifying God, or he starts to state what the problem is. Here's where I am right now in my life. David doesn't waste any time getting to the point in his Psalms, and so he does so here. So again, he said, "Your arrows have sunk deep in me." He's feeling like almost like he's being attacked, right? Again, because David is a warrior, so he often uses the language of war and battle to describe his feelings in the Psalms. So he thinks God is somehow punishing him. He uses words like anger and rage, and your arrows have sunk deep in me. Your hand has come down upon me, like he's striking David. Again, David is not necessarily blaming God here, but David is just expressing how he feels. Like, God, this is what it feels. It feels like your hand, like you're striking me, like you're shooting at me with your arrows. That your anger and your rage has come upon me. Again, this is probably written during the time of 1 Samuel 18 through 28, where he's escaping persecution from Saul. So a lot of Psalms written during that time have this theme of oppression. And again, we're talking about today, blacks, Catholic American saints on the road to sainthood who had to overcome a lot of persecution, who probably felt the same way as David did in the beginning of this psalm. So here David lays out the problem. He's going through something difficult, and it feels like it feels the oppressive weight in his life, right? And he's asking God to laying out to God how he's feeling. And he continues that theme. There is no soundness in my flesh because of your anger. There is no health in my limbs because of my sin. So he's intimating here that one of the reasons why he feels this anger and oppression by God is because of his sin, right? He said, "There's no health in my limbs. There's no soundness in my bones." Right? I'm listless because of this anger. It's just like taking everything out of me. I have nothing left to give. And he's thinking that one of the reasons for this is because of his sin, and that which was typical back at that time, because the Israelites believed that if things were going well in your life, that means that you were in God's favor. If things weren't going so well in your life, that meant that God was angry at you, right? And probably because of something, God is seeking some kind of retribution or seeking justice for something that you did. Right. So that again, David is doing what's typically in the Psalms here, applying human emotions, human feelings, human sensibilities and attributes to God. Of course, we know God is complete and perfect love, but when you're going through something difficult, this is what it feels like, and he's writing this song, crying out to God about how he's feeling. Very, very human, very typical. And a lot of us feel that today. In fact, some people may even leave the faith because they blame God for what's going on in their life. So unlike David, even though he feels that God is putting this burden on him, that he's feeling in a sense the wrath or the anger of God in his life, which of course is not true. He's just writing about how he feels. Some people will take that, the death of a spouse, the death of a child, and they'll turn that into anger and retribution against God. I'll show you, God. I'll stop worshiping you. I'll stop going to church. I'll stop believing in you because of what's happening in my life right now. And that's a difficult place to be, but sometimes very understandable.
Well, and it's also a reminder that when we have church hurt or we are mad at God about something, He's big enough for us to be mad at Him. But as I read this, I also look at it from the perspective as a dad. When my kids come to me because they know they've done something wrong or they've not been living up to the expectations that their mom and I have for them, they sometimes may say, "Okay, hey, don't get mad." Like they'll preface it with, "What I'm about to tell you
Ah,
falls in line with the thing that you would normally tell us not to do or to stay away from." And so I try to be in a frame of mind. Now sometimes it can be extreme, like if they put themselves or someone else in danger, then it might be a little harder for me to be chilled. But the great thing about God is that He can be, right? Like, I mean, while there is a wrath side of Him, He really is a gracious and compassionate God. So I love that in the same way David to God in his words, it's like a parent to child, or of course in our own understanding of David and how we can live like that, us to God is also the same.
yes, exactly, exactly. Um, Again, that this is what I love about some of these Psalms of David. They're so human,
Hmm.
and they really speak to an authentic human experience. He doesn't shy away from it,
Yeah.
So I think when we're feeling this way, this is one of the Psalms we could go to. So we
Hmm.
go, yeah, David, I totally feel what you're going through right now. I totally get it. So it's a definitely a way to use the scriptures to connect with your own lived experience.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
Amen.
And he continues in verse 5. My guilt towers higher than my head. It is a weight too heavy to bear. So again, he talks about his sin in the previous the previous verse. Now he talks about his guilt. Tower is a weight too heavy to bear. My wounds are foul and festering, the result of my own folly. So now he goes beyond just saying, I feel guilty because of my sin. He's comparing it now to an open wound. So if you have a wound that doesn't, that you don't take care of it, you don't put antiseptic on it, you don't take care of the wound, it can get infected, right? And it becomes, you see all the pus, and sometimes it even gets worse than that, starts to discolor the skin, and then the infections start to work into your body and different things like that. So David is talking about that. This is how he feels what's happening in his life because of the guilt of his sins. All right. So Again, he's using the language of war, because in war, sometimes you get injured and there's a wound there, and he feels like this wound is not healing. It's foul and it's festering. And he says, the result of my own folly. So again, he's not blaming God. He's saying, hey, look, this is on me. This is something that I, in a sense, brought upon myself. Again, because he felt that he did something that God is kind of seeking retribution against him, again, which is not true, but that's how he feels. And in verse 7, I am bound, I am bowed and brought to my knees. I go mourning all the day long. Right? So falling to your knees is a position of worship, right? Even though he's sad, even though he feels like the Lord is, in a sense, abandoned him, or seeking anger against him, he still drops to his knees because he remembers who God is in his life.
For more on the Soulful Psalms with Deacon Harold Sivers, check out Beacon of Truth weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio and streaming everywhere you listen to podcasts.